The massive alien ships appeared in Earth's orbit on a Tuesday morning. They came without warning, 7 enormous vessels that blocked out the sun in parts of Asia and cast long shadows across the Pacific. Major David Petraeus was in the middle of his morning coffee when the call came through. "Sir, you need to see this," said the voice on the other end. It was Lieutenant Samantha Wright, his tactical analyst. David rushed to the Pentagon's newly established Earth Defense Initiative headquarters. The room buzzed with frantic activity as military personnel and scientists hurried between monitoring stations. On the main screen, satellite imagery showed the alien vessels positioned strategically around the planet. "What do we know?" David asked, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "Not much," Samantha replied. She handed him a tablet displaying preliminary scans. "They're unlike anything we've ever seen. The largest ship is approximately 5 miles long. They're not responding to any communication attempts." David studied the data. He had never truly believed in extraterrestrial life, despite his position. As commander of EDI, the initiative had been formed as a precautionary measure, a way to coordinate global defense in case of unprecedented threats. Most people, including David, thought it would never be needed. "Get me Dr. Hoffman," David ordered. Greg Hoffman was the nation's leading xenobiologist, though until today his work had been largely theoretical. The bearded scientist arrived within the hour, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. "This is extraordinary," Greg said, examining the scans. "The ships appear to have some kind of organic component. They're not just machines, they might be partially alive." The president called an emergency meeting of the National Security Council. David sat quietly as officials argued about the best course of action. Some wanted immediate military strikes. Others suggested continued attempts at peaceful contact. "Major Petraeus," the president finally said, "as EDI commander, what's your assessment?" David chose his words carefully. "We know nothing about their capabilities or intentions. A hasty attack could lead to our destruction. I recommend we continue attempts at communication while quietly preparing our defenses." The meeting ended with approval of David's approach. Back at EDI headquarters, communications expert Lisa Martinez had been working on potential first contact protocols. "We've been broadcasting greetings in all languages," Lisa explained. "Mathematical sequences, too. Universal concepts that any advanced civilization should recognize." 3 tense days passed. Military forces worldwide were placed on high alert. Civilians began panic buying supplies. Religious leaders held special services. Some people celebrated in the streets, believing the aliens brought salvation. On the 4th day, the aliens responded. "We're receiving a transmission," Lisa announced, her fingers moving quickly across her console. "It's coming through on all frequencies in perfect English." The message appeared on screens worldwide. "We are the Zolaxian Collective. We require your water resources. Prepare for negotiations." Within hours, a meeting was arranged. David would lead a small delegation to meet with the aliens aboard the International Space Station, which the Zolaxians had agreed to use as neutral territory. "This is insane," Samantha said as they prepared. "We know nothing about them." "Which is why we need this meeting," David replied. He checked his sidearm, though he doubted it would provide much protection if needed. The trip to the space station was tense. David's team included Samantha, Greg, and Lisa. They wore standard NASA spacesuits modified with additional sensors to gather as much information as possible. When they arrived, they found the station had been partially reconfigured. The air was different, breathable but with an unfamiliar sweetness. And waiting for them was Ambassador Vorax. The alien stood nearly 8 feet tall with 4 long arms and skin that shifted colors like oil on water. Its head housed 3 large eyes arranged in a triangle, and it moved with an unsettling grace in the zero-gravity environment. "Major David Petraeus," the alien said, its voice coming from a small device attached to what might have been its chest. "We have studied your global communications network. You command Earth's defenses." David stepped forward. "I represent the United Nations in this matter. We welcome peaceful contact with the Zolaxian Collective." "Peace is not our concern," Vorex replied. Efficiency is our goal. Your planet contains abundant water resources that we require. We will begin extraction in 7 of your days. Greg stepped forward. May I ask why you need our water specifically? The solar system contains many sources of water that aren't inhabited. The alien's skin darkened. Earth's water has the precise molecular composition we require. Other sources are insufficient. And what about the people of Earth? David asked. What happens to us during this extraction? Your continued existence is not relevant to our needs, Vorex said, though we can relocate a small population sample for study. The implications were clear. The Zalaxians plan to take Earth's water regardless of the cost to human life. This is unacceptable, David said firmly. We're willing to discuss limited water sharing, but not at the expense of our survival. The alien's skin flashed bright red. You misunderstand. This was not a negotiation, but a courtesy notification. Resistance would be futile and irrational. The meeting ended abruptly. As the Earth delegation prepared to return home, Vorex delivered a final message. To demonstrate our capabilities, we will remove a small landmass in your Pacific Ocean in 12 hours. It contains minimal human settlement. Observe and understand your position. Back on Earth, David immediately briefed world leaders. They're not here to talk. They view us as insignificant, an obstacle to the resources they want. The president's face was grim on the video conference. Can we fight them? With what we currently have? No, David answered honestly. But they've given us 7 days. We need to use every second. Exactly 12 hours after the meeting, a small uninhabited island in the South Pacific vanished in a flash of light. Satellite imagery showed nothing remained. No debris, no radiation, just empty ocean where land had once been. Global panic ensued. Stock markets crashed. Religious fervor reached new heights. But in the chaos, David noticed something important in the attack data. Look at this, he told Samantha, pointing to energy readings from the demonstration. There's a fluctuation in their weapon system just before firing. A 3-second vulnerability in their targeting. That's not much, Samantha replied. It's something, David said. And right now, something is all we have. David worked through the night, developing a strategy that would require unprecedented global cooperation. In the morning, he presented his initial plan to the United Nations Security Council. The Zolaxians expect us to surrender or make a disorganized last stand, he explained. They don't understand human determination. We've faced extinction-level threats before, from nature, from each other. Each time, we've adapted and survived. As EDZ, the Council debated. Reports came in of smaller alien craft beginning atmospheric testing over various regions. The clock was ticking. 7 days isn't much time, the Chinese representative said. David looked around the room at representatives from nations that had been enemies for generations, now facing a common threat. It will have to be enough, he replied. Because if humanity has one defining quality, it's that we never go down without a fight. The next morning, David gathered his core team at the underground EDI facility beneath the Pentagon. Maps and data screens covered the walls. Military and scientific personnel worked at computer stations, analyzing every piece of information they could gather about the alien ships. What have we learned? David asked, his voice tired from a sleepless night. Dr. Greg Hoffman stood up with his tablet. The aliens call themselves the Zolaxian Collective. Based on their communications, they appear to be a federation of 7 different alien species. The one we met, Vorex, belongs to the dominant species. Lisa Martinez added, We've been monitoring their transmissions. They're speaking to each other in at least 12 different languages, but their technology translates everything instantly. David nodded. What about their capabilities? What are we facing? Samantha Wright pulled up footage of the vanished Pacific island. Their weapons are beyond anything we have. The energy output was off the charts. But there's something interesting in the data. She zoomed in on a series of readings. During the attack, we detected unusual electromagnetic patterns. They seemed to cause minor disruptions in the alien targeting systems. David leaned forward. Disruptions? Explain. It's like their systems experienced a brief glitch, Samantha said. Nothing major, but it delayed their weapon discharge by approximately 2.8 seconds. A new voice joined the conversation. That might be significant. Everyone turned to see Dr. Michelle Thompson enter the room. She was the EDI's lead quantum physicist recruited from MIT just 6 months earlier. How so? David asked. Michelle walked to the main screen. May I? Samantha nodded and stepped aside. Look at these patterns, Michelle said, pulling up new data. The aliens use quantum entanglement for their communications and targeting systems. It's incredibly advanced, but it has a weakness. Certain electromagnetic frequencies seem to disrupt the entanglement. David considered this information. Could we use this? Create some kind of weapon? Michelle shrugged. Not a weapon exactly. More like interference. Think of it as jamming their signals, but at a quantum level. How quickly can you develop something? David asked. With the right resources, maybe 48 hours for a prototype. David made a decision. You'll have everything you need. Lieutenant Wright, work with Dr. Thompson on this. As they left to begin work, Aaron Brooks, the EDI's chief engineer, entered with new satellite images. Major, the aliens are taking special interest in our polar regions. We've detected smaller craft hovering over the Arctic and Antarctic. They're after the ice caps, Greg realized. The largest freshwater reserves on the planet. David studied the images. Lieutenant Jack Adams, he called to a young officer monitoring global communications. What's the situation at our polar research stations? Jack checked his screen. Both the Arctic and Antarctic stations report alien vessels taking ice samples. No hostile actions yet. They're studying the purity of the water, Greg suggested. Testing it before full extraction. David walked to the world map displayed on the main screen. If water is what they want, then water becomes our strategic advantage. We know this planet. They don't. He turned to his team. I want defensive plans centered around our major freshwater sources, the Great Lakes, major rivers, reservoirs, and the polar regions. If Michelle can develop this EM disruption technology, we'll position it to protect these water sources. The next 2 days were a blur of activity. The United Nations Security Council, for perhaps the first time in history, reached unanimous agreement to place all military forces under EDI command. Countries shared military secrets and technology. Scientists worldwide collaborated on understanding the alien threat. At Edwards Air Force Base in California, David watched as engineers modified an F-35 fighter jet with Michelle's prototype EM pulse generator. Will it work? He asked her as they observed technicians making final adjustments. In theory, Michelle replied. The pulse should disrupt their quantum systems for about 10 seconds. Not long, but maybe enough to make a difference. Aaron Brooks, who had overseen the modifications, joined them. We've installed the device without compromising the aircraft's performance, but we only have enough materials for 12 units right now. 12 will have to do for testing, David said. If it works, we'll need to mass produce these immediately. The odd test came sooner than expected. 3 alien scout ships appeared over Lake Superior the following morning. David authorized the modified F-35s to intercept. From the command center, he watched drone footage of the encounter. The fighter jets approached the alien vessels, which were hovering just above the lake surface, apparently collecting water samples. Jets are in position, the mission commander reported. Ready to engage. Activate EM pulse generators, David ordered. On screen, nothing visible happened, but the effect on the alien ships was immediate. They wobbled in the air, their smooth movement becoming erratic. For several seconds, their systems appeared confused. It's working, Michelle exclaimed. The pulse is disrupting their navigation systems. The alien vessels quickly retreated to higher altitude, beyond the range of the pulse generators, but the test had proven Michelle's theory correct. They're vulnerable, David said quietly. Not much, but it's something we can use. Later that day, more reports came in of alien scout ships appearing over major freshwater sources worldwide. The Amazon River, the Great Lakes, the Yangtze, Lake Baikal, and others. Earth's forces used conventional weapons with little effect, but the few places where EM pulse technology had been deployed showed promising results. 5 days had passed since the aliens' arrival. Only 2 days remained before their deadline. Info. An emergency session at the United Nations, David presented his global defense strategy. The Zalaxians have superior technology, but we have advantages they don't expect, he explained to the assembled world leaders. First, we know our planet. Second, we've identified a weakness in their systems. He outlined a 3-part plan: defense of key water resources using the EM technology, evacuation of civilian populations from coastal regions and areas near major freshwater sources, and a coordinated counteroffensive if the aliens began their extraction process. We need more time to develop our defenses, the British Prime Minister objected. Perhaps we should try to negotiate an extension. The Zalaxians aren't interested in negotiation, David replied firmly. Ambassador Vorex made that clear. They see us as insignificant. Our only chance is to show them we're not. As the meeting concluded, an aide rushed in with urgent news. Major Petraeus, the alien mothership, is moving. It's taking position over the Arctic Circle. They're starting early, David realized. He turned to the world leaders. We're out of time. The defense of Earth begins now. Back at EDI headquarters, the atmosphere was tense but focused. The team had prepared for this moment as best they could. Global forces are moving into position, Samantha reported. EM defense systems are ready at 63% of critical locations. David looked at the tactical display showing the alien mothership over the Arctic. Smaller alien vessels were descending toward the ice. Patch me through to all EDI forces, he ordered. When the connection was ready, David spoke clearly, his voice reaching military personnel around the world. This is Major David Petraeus. The Zalaxians have begun their operation ahead of schedule. Implement Defense Plan Alpha immediately. Remember, protect the water sources at all costs and utilize the EM disruption technology whenever possible. He paused. The future of our planet depends on what we do in the next 24 hours. Good luck to us all. As he finished speaking, reports began coming in of alien ships appearing over Antarctica, the Great Lakes, and major reservoirs worldwide. On the main screen, the first visuals of combat appeared. Human fighter jets engaging alien vessels over the Arctic ice cap. The battle for Earth had begun. The Zalaxian assault began in earnest. Their ships descended upon Earth's major water sources with frightening precision. David watched from the EDI command center as battles erupted across the globe. The room was filled with the sounds of urgent communications and rapidly updating tactical displays. Status report, David ordered, his eyes fixed on the main screen showing global engagement points. Arctic defense is holding, but just barely, Samantha replied. The EM pulse fighters are making a difference, but we don't have enough of them. Antarctic. Forces report heavy losses, Jack Adams added from his station. The aliens have established extraction points at 3 major glaciers. David studied the tactical map. Red dots showing alien positions were spreading across every continent. The blue markers of human forces seemed small in comparison. What about civilian evacuations? He asked. Lisa checked her screen. Coastal cities are at 60% evacuation. Inland water source regions at 45%. There's panic in some areas, especially after the aliens destroyed the Hoover Dam. The destruction of the dam had been the aliens' first major strike. They had vaporized it completely, causing massive flooding downstream. It was a demonstration of power meant to terrify. They're targeting our infrastructure as well as our water, David noted. They want to break our will to fight. Colonel Kevin Dempsey, commanding European Defense Forces, appeared on a video screen. His face was streaked with dirt, and explosions could be heard in the background. Major Petraeus, we're engaging 4 alien vessels over the Mediterranean, he reported. The EM technology is working, but they adapt quickly. Each pulse is less effective than the last. Hold your position as long as possible, Colonel, David ordered. We need time for Dr. Thompson to adjust the pulse frequency. In the science lab 1 level below the command center, Michelle and her team worked frantically to modify the EM pulse. Technology. They're learning, Michelle explained when David checked in. Their quantum systems are recalibrating to resist our disruption. We need to create a variable pulse that changes frequency randomly. How long? David asked. 8 hours, for the new prototype. Then we need to upload the modifications to all deployed units. David frowned. We might not have 8 hours. Reports of alien victories were coming in from around the world. In China, 3 major dams had been destroyed. In Brazil, alien ships were siphoning water directly from the Amazon River. The news from Russia was even worse. Lake Baikal, the world's largest freshwater lake, was being systematically drained. However, there were small victories too. Commander Patricia Lin had used submarine-launched EM missiles to disrupt alien extraction along the Yangtze River. In North America, a combined U.S.-Canadian force had successfully defended the Great Lakes using the limited EM pulse fighters available. David knew they needed something more. A game-changing strategy. Dr. Hoffman, he called to the xenobiologist, you've been studying their communication patterns. Have you found anything useful? Greg looked up from his workstation. Actually, yes. They use a form of quantum entanglement for instant communication across vast distances. It's incredibly advanced, but it follows predictable patterns. Could we interfere with their communications the same way we're disrupting their weapons? Greg exchanged a look with Michelle, who had just entered the command center. Possibly, she said, but we'd need to get much closer to their mothership to affect their primary communication hub. David considered this. If we could disrupt their ability to coordinate, it might give us the edge we need. You're talking about directly attacking the mothership, Samantha said. That's suicide with our current capabilities. Not an attack, David clarified. An infiltration. The idea formed quickly in his mind. They would need to capture an alien scout ship, learn to operate it, and use it to approach the mothership. Undetected. Once aboard, they could plant an enhanced EM pulse device directly at the communication hub. David outlined his plan to the team. The risks were enormous, but they were running out of options. I'll lead the mission myself, he concluded. Sir, with respect, you're needed here to coordinate global defense, Samantha objected. This mission is too important to delegate, David replied firmly. And if we fail, global coordination won't matter anyway. While Michelle and her team worked on an enhanced EM pulse device for the mission, David selected his infiltration team. Himself, Samantha for tactical support, Dr. Susan Chen as xenolinguist to interpret any alien communications, combat engineer, Ryan Garcia for his technical skills, tech specialist Alan Murphy to operate the EM device, and Special Forces operative Nicole Reeves for security. The first step was capturing an alien scout ship intact. This opportunity came 12 hours later, when an alien vessel suffered damage from an EM pulse during an engagement over Lake Superior. The ship made an emergency landing on a small island in the lake. David's team moved in quickly. Nicole led the assault, with Ryan providing technical support to disable rather than destroy the vessel. After a brief firefight with the alien crew, they secured the ship. Ryan and Alan spent hours studying the alien controls. The interface was unlike anything humans had designed, with neural connections that responded to thought patterns rather than physical interaction. We can't fly it conventionally, Ryan reported. But we found these. He held up several helmet-like devices. They appear to be neural interfaces. Susan studied the symbols on the helmets. Based on the markings, these are meant for the pilot. Caste of their species. They might work for humans, but the mental connection could be dangerous. I'll test it, David said. Despite protests from his team, David placed the alien helmet on his head. The sensation was immediate and overwhelming. Like having his brain submerged in cold electricity, strange symbols and concepts flooded his mind. When he finally removed the helmet, his nose was bleeding, but he was smiling. It works. I can understand the basic controls. It's painful, but manageable. With the captured scout ship and the ability to pilot it, they could move to the next phase of the plan. Michelle's team had completed the enhanced EM pulse device. It was larger than the versions used in fighters, designed to create a cascading disruption that would spread throughout the mothership's systems. Once activated, You'll have approximately 20 minutes to get out before the mothership's systems recover, Michelle explained. The device needs to be placed directly at their central communication hub. Global conditions were deteriorating rapidly. Nearly 30% of Earth's fresh water had been extracted. Millions of people were displaced by flooding or alien attacks. Military forces were stretched to breaking point. As David's team prepared for their desperate mission, news arrived that the alien mothership was repositioning over the Atlantic Ocean, within striking distance of the eastern seaboard of the United States. They're escalating, Samantha noted as they made final preparations. This might be our last chance. David addressed his team one final time before boarding the captured scout ship. What we're attempting has never been done before. The odds are against us, but remember, they don't understand human determination. They don't expect us to bring the fight directly to them. He looked at each member of his team in turn. No matter what happens today, Earth will know we gave everything to defend it. With those words, they boarded the alien vessel. Ryan helped David secure the neural interface helmet. As the painful connection established, David took control of the ship. The small craft lifted off, heading toward the massive mothership hovering in the upper atmosphere. Their desperate gambit had begun. The captured alien scout ship rose through Earth's atmosphere. Inside, David struggled with the neural interface. Each command sent sharp pain through his head, but he maintained control. The rest of the team watched in tense silence as the massive mothership grew larger in their view screen. "Status update from Earth," Samantha said quietly, checking a secure communication device. "The aliens have begun large-scale extraction over the Atlantic. They're literally pulling water into the sky." David nodded but kept his focus on piloting. "Dr. Chen, any incoming communications?" Susan listened through a modified headset connected to the alien communication system. "Nothing yet. They probably think we're returning from a regular mission." The mothership was enormous beyond comprehension. Its surface wasn't smooth but covered with what appeared to be living tissue mixed with metallic structures. It pulsed with strange lights and energy patterns. "How do we get inside?" Nicole asked, checking her weapons. "There," Ryan pointed to what looked like openings along the underside. "Those appear to be docking bays for scout ships." David adjusted their course toward the nearest opening. The neural interface showed him information about proper docking procedures, though interpreting the alien concepts was difficult. "Incoming transmission," Susan warned. "They're asking for identification." "What do we do?" Alan looked worried. "Nothing," David answered. "If we respond incorrectly, they'll know something's wrong. Let's hope our ship's automatic transponder is enough." Tense seconds passed. Then the opening before them widened, creating a clear path into the mothership. "It worked," Samantha whispered. David guided the ship into the docking bay and landed among dozens of identical scout vessels. The bay was vast, with high ceilings and strange organic-looking support structures. Various species of aliens moved about, none paying particular attention to their newly arrived ship. The atmosphere reads as breathable, but with high oxygen content, Ryan reported, checking a sensor. "We might feel lightheaded, but we can breathe." "Everyone remember the plan," David said as they prepared to exit. "We find the central communication hub, plant the device, and get out before it activates." Nicole went first, followed by Ryan and Alan. David, Samantha, and Susan exited last. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth's, making movement easier, but less precise. The aliens around them were focused on their tasks. Most resembled the ambassador they had met earlier, with multiple limbs and color-changing skin. Others were completely different species, some insect-like, others more reptilian. "This way," Susan whispered, consulting a small device that detected energy patterns. "The strongest communication signals are coming from the center of the ship." They moved through curved corridors that seemed partially alive. The walls pulsed with light and occasionally shifted position. Doorways opened and closed without obvious controls. "This place is disorienting," Samantha commented. "It's like being inside a living organism." "In a way we are," Ryan replied. The ship seems to be a hybrid of technology and biology. They passed groups of aliens but attracted little attention. Most seemed to assume they were authorized personnel. When one alien approached them making questioning sounds, Susan quickly made gestures she had observed others using. The alien moved on, apparently satisfied. After 20 minutes of careful navigation, they reached a more heavily guarded area. Two large armored aliens stood before a doorway, pulsing with intense light. "That has to be the communication hub," Alan whispered. "But how do we get past the guards?" Nicole pointed to a nearby corridor. "There might be another way in. These organic ships often have multiple access points for maintenance." Ryan scanned the area with a modified device. "She's right. There's an opening about 30 meters that way. It's smaller, but it should lead to the same place." The team backtracked and found the maintenance access, a narrow tunnel that pulsed with the same light as the main doorway. "I'll go first," Nicole said. She removed her bulkier equipment and slipped into the opening. One by one, they followed. The tunnel was tight and uncomfortably warm. The walls seemed to react to their touch, sometimes constricting slightly as they passed. "It's like the ship knows we don't belong here," Samantha whispered. They emerged into a vast chamber filled with pulsing light structures. In the center was a column of pure energy that reached from floor to ceiling. Smaller energy beams extended from it in all directions, connecting to various parts of the ship. "That's it," Susan said in awe. "The central communication hub." Alan carefully removed the enhanced EM pulse device from his pack. "Where exactly do I place it?" "As close to the central column as possible," David answered. "But be careful not to touch the energy beams." Alan began moving toward the center of the room, stepping carefully between the energy pathways. The others watched anxiously, weapons ready in case of discovery. None of them noticed the small security drone hovering near the ceiling until it emitted a piercing alarm. Instantly, the room was bathed in red light. The exit sealed shut. "We're compromised," Nicole shouted, raising her weapon as doors around the chamber slid open. Armored security aliens poured into the room, weapons raised. The team took defensive positions behind equipment, returning fire. "Alan, get that device planted," David ordered over the noise of battle. "Everyone else, give him cover." The fighting was intense. The alien weapons fired energy pulses that melted anything they touched. Nicole and Samantha responded with precision, fire taking down several attackers. Ryan was hit in the shoulder and fell back with a cry of pain. David moved to him, dragging him behind cover. "I'm okay," Ryan gasped, though his wound was severe. "Keep going." Alan made progress toward the central column, moving from cover to cover. He was just meters away when a larger door opened, and a different alien entered. This one was taller than the others, with a more complex pattern of colors shifting across its skin. It wore what appeared to be ceremonial armor and carried an ornate staff that crackled with energy. "That's their commander," Susan called out. "His markings indicate high rank." The alien commander, Drool, surveyed the battle with 3 large eyes. When he spotted David, he made a gesture. The security forces ceased fire. "Humans." Drool's voice came through some kind of translator. "Your presence here is unexpected, impressive, but futile." David stepped forward, weapon still raised. "We want you to stop extracting our water and leave our planet." Drool's skin rippled with what might have been amusement. "Your species continues to surprise us with its determination, but you cannot stop what has begun." While they talked, Alan continued inching toward the central column. He was almost there. "Why our planet?" David demanded, keeping Drool's attention. "There are uninhabited worlds with water. None with the specific properties we require," Drool replied. "Your world is unique in this sector of the galaxy." Suddenly, Drool noticed Alan's movement. His skin flashed red, and he raised his staff. "Stop him!" Security forces opened fire again. Nicole and Samantha returned fire, creating chaos. David launched himself directly at Drool, tackling the alien commander. The two grappled on the floor. Drool was stronger, but David fought with desperate intensity. In the background, he heard Alan shout, "Device planted, 20 minutes until activation." Drool threw David off and stood, his skin pulsing with anger. What have you done? The ship suddenly shuddered, and alarms blared throughout the chamber. The central column flickered. It's starting, Alan called out. The device is disrupting. Their system's ahead of schedule. David scrambled to his feet. Everyone to the exit. Now. As the team regrouped and fought their way toward the maintenance tunnel, the ship continued to shake. Systems throughout the chamber sparked and failed. Drool watched them with what seemed like newfound respect. This changes nothing, he called after them. You have merely delayed the inevitable. David paused at the tunnel entrance. We'll see about that, he replied, before following his team into the passage. Behind them, the central communication hub began to collapse as the EM pulse spread throughout the mothership's systems. The journey back through the mothership was chaotic. Alarms blared as the EM pulse spread through the alien systems. Lights flickered and strange organic sections of the walls contracted in what appeared to be pain. The ship is reacting like a wounded animal, Ryan observed as David helped him move through the corridor. His shoulder wound was still bleeding. How much time do we have? David asked. Alan checked a small device on his wrist. The pulse is spreading faster than expected. Maybe 10 minutes before the whole ship goes into shutdown. They hurried toward the docking bay, encountering less resistance than expected. Most of the alien crew was occupied with trying to save their failing systems. Communications are down ship-wide, Susan reported, listening through her modified headset. They can't coordinate their response. When they reached the docking bay, they found it in disarray. Aliens rushed in all directions, some boarding scout ships, others attempting repairs on critical systems. Our ship is still there, Samantha pointed to their captured vessel, sitting undisturbed among the others. As they moved toward it, Nicole suddenly stopped. We're being followed. They turned to see Drool and a group of elite guards approaching. The alien commander's skin pulsed with angry red and orange patterns. We need to hurry, David urged. Everyone get to the ship, I'll hold them off. Not alone you won't, Samantha said, taking position beside him. Nicole joined them, raising her weapon. Get Ryan aboard, David ordered Susan and Alan. Start the launch sequence. As Susan and Alan helped the injured Ryan to the ship, David, Samantha, and Nicole exchanged fire with Drool's forces. The docking bay erupted into chaos as stray shots hit sensitive equipment, causing secondary explosions. Drool advanced steadily, seemingly immune to fear. His staff weapon fired powerful energy blasts that forced the humans to constantly change positions. I can't start the neural interface without David, Susan called from the ship's entrance. We need him to pilot. Go, David shouted to Samantha and Nicole. I'll be right behind you. As his companions retreated to the ship, David found himself facing Drool alone. Around them, the mothership continued to deteriorate as the EM pulse spread. Your efforts are impressive, human, Drool said, approaching cautiously, but ultimately meaningless. We have other ships. We will still take your water. David backed toward the scout ship, keeping his weapon trained on Drool. Why are you really here? This isn't just about water. Drool hesitated, his skin shifting to a deep blue. You are more perceptive than expected, he admitted. The water is essential, yes, but not for the reason you think. A massive explosion rocked the docking bay. Support structures began collapsing. They were running out of time. Tell me, David demanded. We are not conquerors, Drool said. We are refugees. Our home systems were destroyed by a greater threat, a machine intelligence that consumes all in its path. We need your world-specific water composition to fuel our biological shields, our only defense against them. David stared in shock. You're running from something worse? They are called the Harvesters, Drool continued. And they will reach this sector within a year. Without our shields, all life here will be extinguished. Another explosion larger than before shook the entire bay. Pieces of the ceiling began falling around them. David, we need to go now, Samantha shouted from the ship's entrance. In that moment of distraction, Drool lunged forward. David fired, catching the alien commander in what appeared to be a shoulder. Drool staggered but kept coming. David turned and sprinted for the ship. He barely made it inside before Nicole sealed the door. David rushed to the control area and donned the neural interface helmet. Pain shot through his head as the connection established, but he pushed through it, initiating launch procedures. The scout ship lifted off as the docking bay began to collapse behind them. They navigated through falling debris and escaped through the external opening just as it started to close. "Look," Susan gasped, pointing back at the mothership. Through the view screen, they watched as the massive vessel's lights flickered and died section by section. It began to drift, its position over the Atlantic no longer maintained. "We did it," Samantha said quietly. "We actually did it." "Not completely," David replied, thinking of Drool's words. "The EM pulse will eventually wear off, and they have other ships." They descended back through Earth's atmosphere. Below, they could see the effects of the aliens' water extraction. Vast dry areas where lakes and rivers had been, coastlines dramatically altered. But the process had stopped when they disrupted the mothership's systems. David made contact with EDI headquarters. "This is Major Petraeus. Mission accomplished. Requesting landing coordinates." "Copy that, Major." Lisa's relieved voice came through. "The other alien ships have ceased extraction activities. They appear to be regrouping." 2 weeks later, David stood in the United Nations General Assembly. Representatives from every nation filled the hall. On the stage with him was Ambassador Vorex, now adopting a more conciliatory posture. "The attack on your world was wrong," Vorex addressed the assembly, his translator conveying his words. "We have existed so long in survival mode that we forgot the principles of cooperation that once defined the collective." David stepped forward. "What Ambassador Vorex has shared with us changes everything. The threat they flee is real, and it will reach our solar system. Either we find a way to coexist and prepare together, or we all face extinction." The agreement they reached was unprecedented. Earth would share a portion of its water resources, enough to power the alien shields, but not enough to harm Earth's ecosystems. In return, the Xalaxians would share their technology and help prepare Earth's defenses for the coming harvester threat. 6 months later, David stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Earth Xalaxian defense platform in orbit. Below, Earth was healing. Combined human and alien technology had accelerated the restoration of damaged ecosystems. Samantha joined him at the viewport. "Joint training exercises are going well," she reported. "The pilots are actually starting to work together effectively." Below, squadrons of human and alien craft practiced combat maneuvers against simulated harvester attacks. "Did you ever think we'd end up here?" Samantha asked. "Working alongside them instead of fighting them?" "No," David admitted. "But that's always been humanity's strength. Adaptation." Drool, now serving as military liaison to Earth forces, approached them. His wounded shoulder had healed, leaving a distinctive pattern on his color-changing skin. "Major Petraeus," he said with a respectful gesture. "Long-range sensors have detected anomalies at the edge of the solar system. The first harvester scouts." David nodded, his expression resolute. "Then we better be ready. Notify all Earth Xalaxian defense units. It's time to put our alliance to the test." As they moved to the command center, David glanced once more at Earth below. They had nearly lost everything, but instead found something unexpected, a place in a much larger universe, and allies in what would be the true fight for survival. The coming battle would be unlike anything humanity had faced before. But they would face it together, humans and aliens standing as one against the darkness approaching from the stars.